Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Coffee Break Chat. It's a cloudy but okay so far Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. I'm your host, executive producer, Lightleaf Productions, James Jackson, he, they pronouns. And yeah, welcome to another Coffee Break Chat. Today's special guest is Chris Davis. I'll bring him on screen in a minute. We're going to be talking about the life raft. The whole concept of a life raft is supposed to get you back to safety. Um, Biden jumping ship, Tiny got shot, hooray, and hurricane damage. We're gonna talk a little bit about all of those things. Let me see if my camera is set up. Nope. Let me fix that. All right. Don't know where Chris is. Hold on. Let me fix it. At any rate, there's Chris, and I'll fix that in a second. Welcome to the screen. 1 second. There we go. Let's try it again. Chris, welcome to the Coffee Break Chat. If you would introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, and what it is you do.
Yes, thanks for having me. My name is Chris Davis, and my pronouns are he, him. And I write plays in Philadelphia, produce them, and perform in them often as well. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Um, 1 second. Let me just switch something here. Sorry about that. There you are. That's why we didn't have you on screen correctly. We didn't have anybody pinned. Also, joining us today, looks like we have Kent and we have Chris. I'll bring you guys on screen in a few minutes, but let's finish talking to Chris Davis as well. Chris, you got a show coming up. It is it is sorry. I'm having a hard time today. It is Silence Violence of the Lambs. Sorry, you have a shirt on with it. And would you tell me a little bit about Violence of the Lambs? What is it about? What are we talking about with Violence of the Lambs here?
Absolutely. It's a show, and I'll just show the shirt because it says it all. You know, the shirt actually, this is like the entire show essentially. So you can see there the year 1982 and then 2013. I guess that's when I got this shirt made. And animal attacks on humans are going up. So the premise of the show is there's a character named Marcus Livingood, and he has discovered basically that animal attacks are increasing and that animals are actually organizing to start a war against humans. And so he proves it to you with graphs that are laminated, like this graph here. He has pictures, all you need for proof, like real cold hard evidence. And basically, it's kind of like a satire of the conspiracy theory genre of like, we know we can kind of prove anything at this point. And so this is sort of making fun of that. And I think it's very silly, very funny. And yeah, I mean, it's not meant to be taken seriously, except Marcus Livingood takes it very seriously. And so it's a comedy. It's like 45 minutes long, and it's performed by Jess Snow, who is a great actor in Philadelphia. And I asked her to do this project because I thought she was perfect. And yeah, so this is a remount of a show from 2013. And sadly, it feels more relevant than ever right now. I wish the state of the world was different, but conspiracy theory has definitely been in the limelight the last few years. And this is sort of, yeah, poking fun at that.
Awesome. We do need to poke fun at conspiracy theory every once in a while. I would say most of the time, it's important to poke fun at conspiracy theory. Um, I do it myself, even though buy into a conspiracy theory every once in a while. It's unfortunate, but like you need a good balance. You need to have the conspiracy theories, but you need to take them with a grain of salt or several grains of salt, I suppose. Where can folks see the show? Where is it? When is it?
It starts September 17th. It's part of the Cannonball Festival. So if you Google Cannonball Violence of the Lambs, you'll find the link to the tickets. It takes place at the Moss Garden Bar, which is at 5th and Girard area. It's a beautiful outdoor space. So the whole show's outdoor. We have trees all around you, actual animals flying there, birds and squirrels. And yeah, so I'm happy to be outdoor, with everything going on. And we're going to be live streaming it. So you can watch it at home if you want, or you can attend live if you show your proof of vaccination in order to enter the building. And that goes for all shows at Philly Fringe this year. I think you have to show a vaccination for all of them.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the Cannonball. I know there was an article out recently talking about Free Fringe spawned its own mini festival. I would actually say this is like probably the second or third mini festival that Fringe has sponsored. There's Free
Mhm.
Fringe. There's um, uh, what's the other one? I mean, there's also like things like Porch Fest that happen that are kind of
Yeah.
inspired by Fringe. W- uh, what is Cannonball? Why did that come about?
Yeah, Cannonball is created by Almanac Dance Theater. And they, I think, created it in conjunction with Fringe Arts. And then Free Fringe has now become a part of it. So what it's turned out to be is kind of a nice amalgamation of all these different festivals sort of coming together for this moment, which I think is really nice. Um, so really, the Almanac Dance Theater did definitely spearheaded Cannonball, and they have a very, they have like 15 or 20 different shows they're managing. It's a whole thing, and you can go there to the venue and you can see multiple shows in a day. You can go and see an indoor show and then an outdoor show, and then there's a bar there too. And afterwards, you can go to the bar. And I'm actually running the bar myself with a friend of mine, and the bar is we're being sponsored by Fergie's Pub. So it's basically this combo of I feel like all the festivals coming together for this moment. It's very exciting, and also it's like so crazy to think of what this fringe will be like, when we look back. And I have no idea right now. It's just we're just starting, but I am optimistic because this space is really great. Like it's the Moss Garden Bar, and the Moss space has been around for a long time with a lot of shows. But this garden bar is really nice, and it's nice to be outside, nice to see shows, and good to see people again. I mean, safely. So
Awesome. And so, sorry, one second. I'm just doing some little housekeeping work on the back end here so we can get our other guests also on screen.
mhm.
Um, the the show is interesting to have you as a guest of a coffee break chat because like we we discuss news and politics and yeah, good coffee. And we do discuss coffee every once in a while. And like today's topics are some of them, folks would treat as conspiracy.
Mm.
Um, would like there's a little bit of wonderment around what's going on behind closed doors in some of these topics. And what do I mean by that? They're, that it's fascinating, from a person watching government happen and politics happen perspective versus participatory, to see things like the Proud Boys, and the rise and advent of the of ethno nationalism, white nationalism, which isn't really ethnically based but group based, and that's where we get into the subject of Tiny getting shot. Tiny is a leader of, well, actually, I railed against this yesterday on social media. Tiny is not a leader. Tiny is a thug, who works for and with the Proud Boys at times. Um, and he will show up at locations and marches, and protests, basically to intimidate people. He's 6'3", 295 on a good day. Um, and he's just a large, intimidating presence. Um, so to have somebody like that, on your team, it is obviously for a very specific reason. This person recently, in protests that he was agitating in Portland, was shot during a protest and counter protest that happened. Um, and so to talk about all this, I'm going to welcome on our other two guests. It's turning into quite a guy fest here, but we usually like to have some femme opinion too. But no femme opinion today, just all guys. Sorry about that. So we have Kent and we have Chris. Kent, if you would introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do, and then Chris, if you would follow that up, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Kent. I'm an actor, filmmaker. I'm actually working with James on my film short, Bladesman. We're actually going to be shooting a teaser this weekend. I'm also a martial artist and I'm a writer, and happy to be here.
Thanks. Chris.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name's Chris. My pronouns are he, him, or they and them. I don't really care that much. And I'm a union stagehand. I build shows in Philly. I just got done Made in America this past week. Had a great week out there with my union brothers and sisters. And yeah, that's what I do. I put on shows for a living.
Awesome. Oh, looks like Naya is also joining us, so maybe we will have some femme opinion in a moment.
Great.
Let me.
What's up, Naya?
Hello, Nat. You can't see her in the sunlight.
That's all right.
Hey, Chris, how was Justin Bieber?
In a minute.
Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised.
Wow.
I don't care for Justin Bieber's music at all, but I can tell you that the musicians that he hires for his band are all incredible musicians. And it was a very diverse band. There's a lot of different types of people up there. And the moment of that show that was actually kind of the most impressive, I don't know the name of the song, but it was like a little acoustic guitar number. And he had the acoustic bass. He had the bass player come down, and the guitar player come down, and they both had acoustic instruments. And the bass player played a bass solo, which was like totally unexpected for me. I didn't expect to see that at the Justin Bieber show, and it was really good. It was really good.
I watched the live stream of that show, and I've never listened to Bieber, and I had to say I was actually impressed. Like, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, it was entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just to circle back, I also wanted to talk about the SEPTA changes a little bit today. I don't know if you guys saw the
Metro, you mean?
Yeah, the plan to rename SEPTA's lines and service systems.
This is like the third time they've renamed everything. In the 10
Well,
years.
I think this one's supposed to be like a consolidation of all that work. So they want to rename the Broad Street line to the B line. And for some reason they're calling it the B lines with an S in the marketing materials, which I don't quite understand. It's one line, guys. It's just one.
Wait, there is that little offshoot that I forget exactly where it goes, but it's like right
That
before.
doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, it
It
doesn't.
hasn't
Okay, I
existed
remember
for
that picture like when I was
generations.
a kid. Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, the Broad Street spur.
Spur.
that's what
I
it
took
Yeah.
this
is.
spur a couple years ago accidentally. It ended up in Chinatown. That was amazing. I was
I
not
mean,
intending to go
it
there.
it was great service when they had it because what it would do is cut if you were commuting, say from the suburbs in Jersey, um, or if you were commuting from the northern suburbs and coming in on the R lines, you could come to uh, Market East and take the Broadridge Spur down to South Philly, basically, and cut out Center City, and or go up into northeast Philly without doing doing that transfer from the Market Frankfurt line to the Broad Street line to wherever you were trying to go. So it was good service. I don't. They cut it out because they said they didn't have enough ridership. But anyway, so then they want to rename the L to the L, just the letter L, um, and call it the L lines again with an S. And I don't understand because it is just one line. And then they want to rename the trolley services all to the T lines, which I think would be more confusing personally, but whatever.
Yeah, this seems like a solution searching for a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of it that way too, but I don't know. They supposedly got all this feedback. And there is you can actually post feedback on their website directly to the renaming plan. And yeah, I encourage you, if you have any sort of feelings about this, feel free to go to the SEPTA's website and go to their planning page. Takes a little bit of hunting, but you will get to a form where you can respond to what you think of any of the three plans that they have out right now. This renaming scheme, there's one other plan, and then there's responses to a plan that's coming soon. Um, and you can, I'm sure, write as much or as little as you want. My opinion was just no.
I
I don't
second
know
that.
that I needed to go through that. And then to roughly transition on to Biden, the Biden topic this morning. Dr. Victoria Dooley posted on Twitter, without saying vaccines, please explain Joe Biden's pandemic plan because it surely isn't stimulus checks, universal masking, free tests, masks for all households, ending the filibuster, extending unemployment, or canceling all student debt. And I'm wondering, why isn't he presiding? Um, yeah, I'm wondering why he isn't presiding as president too. What my life raft analogy and quote was for is, we've had over the course of the pandemic, this life raft of federal stimulus, federal aid, federal unemployment, and it's ironically, not ironically, I think this is intentional. The Republican Party always does this, and the Democratic Party never pays attention to the calendar. But they ended all this federal aid on Labor Day, on the day when, we're ostensibly celebrating all the wins that labor has had in supporting working people and unions. Yeah. Um, Thoughts, opinions? I mean, my you know, I could ramble on about this forever. I'm really frustrated with the Biden administration personally. I think this is a very short-sighted um, response to the pandemic. I think, you know, like when interviewed, the folks that were, you know, that are on Biden's team that are making these decisions said something to the effect that, oh, well, the economy is recovering well enough that I don't think that, you know, I think there's enough jobs on offer that we don't need this federal aid any longer.
Yeah, that's I take personal issue with that, and I know that, you know, probably most of us here, because a lot of us work in entertainment, do. Yeah, there are jobs on offer, but not that remotely compensate me the way that I'm qualified to be compensated. And, you know, like with my union, we've recently got a little bit of an influx of work with Made in America, and we had the shows down at Citizens Bank Park. But the outlook going forward for us is still pretty sparse, you know, and we have over 700 members in our union, and there's just simply not enough work in the entertainment industry to support other. Basically, if you have a house job or you're very high on the list in the union, you'll pretty much be okay. But there's going to be a lot of people, like newer members, people who just joined, who you know, they're just not going to get a lot of work in the entertainment industry. And it's a little, to me, it's a little bit unfair that, like, we're expected to just go out and, like, work lower paying jobs and work jobs that, like, we're overqualified for, because, well, you know what, the pandemic's quote unquote over, when it's just not. Yeah, so that's
I think that's what bothers me the most, is not that there aren't jobs, it's that there are no worker protections. You know, we're exiting
right.
this, we're not even exiting the pandemic. It's just as bad, literally, by the numbers, just as bad as it was at the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, I think the
What
only
are,
now, if I can say something, do you guys hear me?
yeah.
Well, I think what's different now is that now we finally do have a vaccine. But what I've noticed, getting back to the entertainment thing, is a lot more people are creating their own work. I mean, I know I'm not union now. I would love to join the union, but a lot more people, the technology is more accessible, where you can go out and make a film, make a theater. Not that it should be a hobby, but there are some people who are making films right now. They're getting it streamed on Amazon. That doesn't mean Amazon will just take anything. There's got to be a certain amount of standards. But 25 years ago, if I was trying to make indie film, I need $1,000 to get started. Now it's like, not that talent is important, not that skill is important, those things are important, but the tools are becoming more accessible. And it's just like, I mean, I understand union, there's not enough union jobs, but I think there's opportunities, at least in the entertainment industry, to create your own work and put your work out there for enough people to actually, hey, we want to do some more with it. You got to be more entrepreneurial with it. I mean, it's like, look, I mean, I agree. People should, I mean, I have a day job right now. I'm obviously overqualified. The only thing got me going, that keep me sane right now, is that I'm still doing my indie film thing. But I think it's more hope now, because I can get something out there that people will take seriously. I mean, like, you got to differentiate yourself from the people who are doing it just for a hobby, or to the people who really, yeah, I want to put my work out there. I want to make a living doing this.
Yeah, I agree with you that for a lot of creative people, there's a lot more opportunity to sort of put your own work out there. But just the distinction that I would make, at least with my union and what we do, is, like, you know, for example, I'm a rigger, so I climb towers, I work with cranes, and, you know, and, like, that's not really something I can just do with a camcorder at home, kind of stuff. And there's a lot of people like me who, like, you know, either they do set construction, or they do live event lighting, or live event audio. Like, you can't really, like, mix a live event from your sound desk on a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, you know, for people who, like, maybe create small theater experiences and stuff like that. Like, yeah, get into streaming, or get into, you know, like, putting together YouTube shorts. Absolutely, I think that's great, and I think that that people should be doing that. But, yeah, it's a little bit different scope of work, and I think that I know we in my union feel like really overlooked by the entire response to the pandemic as well. But that's a little bit of a different discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, that is an interesting opening onto a side of the industry that we have covered in the past, and that we do talk about, like the independent entrepreneurial side of the industry. We're an independent news channel. We're an independent production company like Beef is. We're independently producing this stuff because the traditional route doesn't work for some stories. But I guess where I'm going with it is with the idea of the life raft is that why should we have to? Like, it shouldn't be a requirement. It shouldn't be mandatory to get anything done right now that, you go out there and do it itself. Do it yourself, rather. So, like, there's people like, Kent, you and I have been in the entrepreneurial side of filmmaking since long before the pandemic.
Yeah.
We've been independent producers. Chris, I know, has been an independent producer for most of his career. Chris Davis.
And that's just because I can't get anyone else to produce my stuff, James. To be honest, I really no, seriously, I don't want to be an independent producer anymore. I'm ready to sell out. If anyone is listening, I got some great plays. I'll sell them to you for cheap, 2-for-1 special on
It's all about the moolah.
on Wednesday. I was like, what day is it? One thing I'll say about that unemployment thing, I think it is a tragedy that it's ending right now on Labor Day. I also thought from the beginning, I thought this will never happen again in our lifetime. There's no way that I thought it was very generous, the compensation. It helped out a lot, and I was impressed that our government actually did that. But in the back of my mind, I was like, this is it. It's never happening again. I don't know how you all felt, but I was just like, they're already spinning it where they're like, okay, now people don't want to work, so they're just collecting, and they started spinning that.
They've been laying that groundwork for, I don't know, 6 months now.
Yeah.
I do take issue with the notion that anything that the U.S. government does is generous. I mean, if nothing else, I pay my taxes, and I've gotten almost nothing in unemployment. I got maybe 8 weeks of unemployment throughout the entire pandemic.
I took your unemployment, actually.
Yeah, right. And
it's been great for me.
How I look at that, I'm not like, oh, all these there's unfortunately a lot of tradespeople are like, oh, I'm paying for the unemployment or the welfare of all these lazy people. Like, screw that idea. It's stupid. That's not what's happening. But my point is that the U.S. government giving us our money back during a pandemic so we don't starve to death is not generosity. It's kind of the bare minimum.
It's also
still
self-serving. It's very self-serving. I mean, if you look at this stuff, here's what I don't get. So I listen to lots of news, and I listen to news that some people would consider conservative or capitalistic or whatever you want to call them. There's lots of this business-centric news that I listen to. And I listen to it because I need to be able to speak that language. If I want to work in, as a professional entrepreneur, I need to be able to speak the language that all these other people speak. It's code switching. It's code switching 101. But aside from the code switching, you hear things, and it becomes interesting. The constant refrain from folks in the business world is that all these labor protections and anything labor related or helping of the lower class or the lower economic standing seems to be regarded as a negative, and I don't quite understand that. I don't understand and I hate Ford. I hate the man Ford who founded the company Ford. I hate him with a passion. Like if you look into his politics and his ideas, they're generally awful. But one thing that he recognized um, is that without this base economy, without the folks that are not earning a lot of money, if they can't afford things, then your economy grinds to a halt, and it's very fast. It happens very fast, and we've seen it over and over again. We've seen it every time a government wants to do some sort of cost savings, or say that we need to not put the burden of our current economy on future generations. Let's always think of the children. But
Right.
anyway, I digress. The thing that baffles me is that these aids are very self-serving. If you give $500 a week to anybody that's unemployed, they spend that $500. That $500 goes to the landlords. It goes to Amazon. It goes to Target. It goes to the grocery store, whatever brand grocery store happens to be closest to you.
$500 is not enough. There's no way $500 is enough. I mean, it's just like
It's not enough, but it goes out, right? It's not. It doesn't just sit in your wallet. If you don't have, if that's all you got this week, it's not going to sit in your wallet. It goes
Yeah.
out.
I mean, even outside the context of pandemic financial assistance, this has been something that's been like looked at when you talk about like welfare, and stuff like basically any government program that gives benefits to people who have virtually nothing. Like James says, like 100% of that money goes immediately back into the economy and into the local economy too. It goes into like their community. They go down to the store and buy groceries for their family and stuff like that. Whereas like, all the tax breaks that are supposed to trickle down to us end up sitting in offshore tax havens, and that point has been driven home so many times that I'm getting so frustrated that like, like the pandemic thing is just like, it's an exaggerated form of it. We see that in a very, very pronounced way because so many people are getting that type of assistance right now, or were getting that type of assistance. But if you go back to like any type of like food, healthcare, and Medicare, like programs that give people resources to live their lives, benefit the economy more than any amount of tax breaks for anybody who's wealthy.
So it's self-serving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm sorry. I'm 100% agreeing with you. Yeah.
Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. Happy end to all the pandemic assistance that was out there.
Right.
So
Happy Labor
let's
Day.
talk about
job is what they're saying.
Yeah, happy Labor Day. Get a fucking job. And no, that's not a pull quote. Please, that's me sarcastically quoting every stupid economist who's out here telling
I love
us
that they always say to get a job because all rich people, most of them don't work at all. That's my favorite part. But they're always telling other people to get a job, but like literally they just live off investments. Like they don't do anything.
No, they
I
live
mean,
off
like,
of other people getting jobs. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, that's why they need us to all get jobs. That's also why like the majority of them support like, anti-abortion bills, because they want the lower class to balloon so that there's all these workers and competition for jobs.
Well, they also want them to be essentially financially enslaved to their children by like taking
Yes.
away the ability to family plan. You're putting people in a position where they're going to have children when it's not a financially good idea for them, and maybe they would be able to do it better in a few years. But now they're basically debt slaves for the rest of their life because they have to feed the kid. Sorry, that one particularly bothers me.
And this is where religion is used, like enslave people with that, trying to say, oh, They're trying to save a job for God's sake. As soon as that child is born, you're on your own. You're a leech and stuff like that. So it really has nothing to do with Christianity, Judaism, or anything like that. It's just this is the reason why we have separating church and state. Because there's always people who basically were false prophets who use religion, again, to use anything that we use to be afraid of. Let's blame these people, let's blame that people. So we'll turn on each other and not be smart enough. I may be going off a little bit, sorry, but
no. And honestly, what you said, kind of like there's a dichotomy that you sort of pointed out, where you have, like, well, if you get pregnant, that's God's will, and you should have a kid, and then once you have the kid and you're having trouble, like, feeding the kid, they're like, well, maybe you should have thought about that before you had a child.
Yeah.
Pick one. Yeah. Like you can't have it both ways.
It's about that's what Texas, you know what? Texas is now the handmaiden's tale, basically. We've been trying that book, that TV show, basically is not what it will be. Basically, why it's all about a male patriarchy trying to control a woman's reproductive system, but doing it through the government. And then it's me saying this, but yeah, that's basically it's about having power.
Yeah, Texas is the Gilead. I think that's the place in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. But I've railed about this forever. I literally had a debate class where I refused to represent the pro-life movement in debate class in college because I was like, look, there is nothing that makes any logical sense in debating the pro-life side of this argument. I can't do it. Maybe that makes me a bad lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer, right? And I am not a lawyer currently. But yeah, maybe that would make me a bad lawyer. I can't represent this argument that you want me to represent. I can't find a way to do it. It makes no sense from a legal perspective, and the inviolable right to your own body, and the control of an absolute inviolable right to your own organs, your own autonomy with your own body. At any rate, I mean, that's it's just so much to go through over this Texas bill, and maybe Chris, would this be a conspiracy theory? Is it a conspiracy theory if there's all this like evidence of Chris Davis is who I'm talking to.
I think it's important to make the distinction that conspiracies do exist. Like there is conspiratorial elements to how our government functions. But it's not like, all the, I don't want to actually say anything that would insinuate that might get clipped or anything, but like all the, fill in the blanks are running their cabal of terrible, horrible, like that's nonsense. But there is a conspiratorial nature to like how our laws get passed. It's not like a shadowy club of people that meet in a dark room and smoke cigars and talk about like, well, if we do this, then this will happen. There's some element of that, but it's not the way it gets made out in the conspiracy theories. What it really is like different businesses with different financial interests compete, and when enough of them align and they can get enough politicians that they've basically paid for to pass legislation that supports that's the real conspiracy. You know what I mean? Like you look at stuff like not to get too sidetracked, but like the automotive industry, and how for years and years and years the automotive industry and the oil industry colluded to keep lead in gasoline because it was cheaper to produce that way than to filter the lead out. And it was giving people cancer, and they didn't care because they were making money.
There's a good one. There's a good conspiracy. A good, as in accurate conspiracy. It did actually exist, that I always reference, having to do with petrochemicals. The reason you can't get from Queens to Brooklyn in New York via mass transit. Um, Back in the 1920s and the turn of the century, there were tons and tons of train lines in all across New York, because starting a train line was like starting a YouTube channel in the turn of the century, yeah, turn of the 19th century. And so there were lots of these small companies that would provide transportation between Queens, Brooklyn, any of the boroughs. And so what happened was there was a consolidation. Like with other industries, there's a period of rapid growth as things become accessible, and then there's consolidation, and then a few people, namely the founding family of the Firestone brand of tires, the founding family of the Greyhound Company, the founding and the Ford family, the founding family of the Ford Motor Company, all kind of colluded to purchase and deconstruct the transit system in New York. And their most successful collusion was over the transit portion between Queens and Brooklyn. They literally replaced all of these train lines with motor coach lines, replacing them with buses. And the idea was that, and there was one other family, one of the oil families, I believe the Sunoco family, was involved in this as well. Anyway, they purchased these train lines, replaced them with buses, and then stopped the bus service, or made it less and less available, because bus service is more expensive to run than train service and requires more expense per passenger mile. So it wasn't economically as viable as all these little train services that were out there. So yeah, this has been happening throughout history. It's fascinating when you look at these things, and I just constantly wonder at why folks fight against their own best interest, and it's all across the spectrum. It's not even just like poor, like we have a lot of folks that are like, oh, poor people always fight against their own best interest. Rich people do too. I mean, you want to be rich. That means you're probably an entrepreneur. You're probably owner of some sort of business. That means you need people to spend money with you, which means all these people need money. I was looking at a post. Fox News recently had two graphics in a row, supposedly saying, what the liberal agenda is. And it was like cradle to grave services, free or pre and postnatal childcare leave, free pre-K up till age 3,
Why is
universal
that?
pre-K at no, none of this sounds bad.
Hey, like,
Universal pre-K at age 3, and then universal health care, and then retirement benefits. I'm like, gee, this all sounds relatively like a good idea. Also for the economy, like it sounds like a really good idea for the economy, because like just those.
oh yeah,
Those
Imagine how much easier it would be to like find a job and go to work and pull yourself up by your bootstrap if there was childcare. And imagine all
right.
the job childcare that you're creating by providing this. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's really mind-boggling.
You're going exactly on my tangent.
Right, but the thing I think that's the most mind-boggling to me is that's not even what liberal politicians are trying to do. Like,
no,
I wish that they were this
we
like.
all wish they were.
Like, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, so yeah, but it is arguing against the boogeyman basically. It's arguing against what people actually want, which is fascinating. It's fascinating that this mouthpiece news program decided to highlight all these benefits that would actually really help the economy. I mean, industrialists, there are a lot of you out there still. If you want a lot more money, and I'm talking to you, Bezos, I'm talking to you, Musk. If you want a lot more money, free up some money in the lower classes because they'll just invest it in your companies and try and get rich.
They tax the hell out of them. But look, not one of them they're investing on the space travel and stuff, but no one's helping fix the earth. No one's helping with more environmental. We've seen what's going on with climate change. We should have had electric cars out 20 years ago. We did have electric cars, but electric cars should have been mainstream at least 20 years ago. 10 years ago would have been enough. That's something to be invested in. Now they are investing in it. Now, Biden's trying to build the infrastructure. Hopefully, it'll be able to done. We have no choice but to do it now. We're getting more of these hurricanes going on now. I mean, like Sandy was like a little over 10 years, like 15 years ago. And well, let's talk 15 years ago. But now it's like we're getting more and more of these things. We saw it, that's down south. It's happening more frequently down south. Now it's happening up here up north. I mean, it's like I got caught up with you last week. I was trying to working on King of Prussia. And I was lucky somebody actually gave me a ride home because we almost got stranded out there. Black guy stranded in the suburbs at night. That's a bad movie. That's kind of let's get out. That's more of a documentary.
That's a bad movie.
People. Sorry to put everything up, but it's just like we see these billionaires. Hey, they went to space. It's a great opportunity. Not that we had special to help us, but all these millionaires, they're thinking about their own egos. They're not thinking about let's put technology more into like electric cars. Let's put technology more. We can have a car running on corn oil. No, you ever see Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome? I mean, I know it's a classic. I'm a kid of the '80s. Basically, Bartertown was run on methane. Methane run on pig shit. Well, that's possible. That's possible. Now that it has been proven.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, yeah, I think this kind of goes back to our discussion about industrial collusion and like conspiracies or whatever. Like, why don't we have electric cars? Well, because if we have electric cars, then BP and Sunoco and ExxonMobil, well, they're not selling as much gas. We've come full circle on that one. Like when we're talking about the whole real conspiracy versus fake conspiracy thing. Like the fake conspiracies, like again, I'm not going to give them any airtime, but like the real ones are stuff like that. Like, no, we're just gonna slow roll electric cars until we're in a actual catastrophic climate crisis, like where we're having once in a lifetime storms every 2 to 3 years. Yeah. I think that's a perfect illustration of what we were talking about before with corporate collusion and how that like.
Now there is a demand for car. Now there is demand for car lifting. Now there is a demand on solar energy and wind energy. Now there is demand. After like we had that clown in the White House for 4 years. He shouldn't have gotten in with. Now we want more of a demand in these things.
Well, I wanna, like this is a good segue into our hurricane damage topic a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about not only, the fact that we need to each, like on an industrial level, we need to invest in greener things. There's a lot of interesting study done on European models of business in the 80s having to do with energy conservation and how, like, in really well planned city and industrial systems, like you use the output or waste of one industrial system to power the next industrial system, which, like Kent was talking about methane from pig poop in Beyond Thunderdome, but that's a real thing. You can capture all the methane, and some farmers do capture all the methane from your waste effluent pond and then power your house with it. You can run it through a generator, and you can run it really efficiently. Um, and then rather being a waste gas that is a huge uh, greenhouse gas that's like 14 times worse than CO2 as far as greenhouse capture, um, you release CO2 and oxygen, which is, a lot less damaging to the environment. Um, but yeah, we're going to continue to have hurricanes. And they're going to get worse, and we're going to continue to have, um, other natural disasters. I wanted to talk a little bit about, if you guys don't know, like anytime there is a natural disaster, um, it is actually our government's duty to help people who are affected by that natural disaster. It's actually a constitutional duty, for the federal government to provide aid and assistance. That's why FEMA exists. That's why every time there's a national disaster, if you hear about the government declaring a state of emergency, that's the methodology by which a government declares that it is responsible, for helping people who were affected by that natural disaster. Hurricane Ida affected a huge swath of the East Coast, all the way from New Orleans all the way up to New England, Maine, Massachusetts. There were floods, damages. Locally here in Philadelphia, several people were flooded all across the area that have not ever experienced a flood. We had the loss of the use of one of our major cross-city highways for nearly a week.
No.
Yeah, because it turned into a canal. So, the interesting thing that I've found, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, no disaster declarations. I haven't heard any.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. What I will say is I was genuinely impressed with how quickly they pumped out what had to be. And I don't even want to speculate at the number of gallons of water, but how quickly they got that out of 676 and got 676 reopened. That was actually an impressive operation. But yeah, I think that's a pretty valid point. Like, why were there not more disaster declaration? Why was there not a disaster declaration? Like, outside of just those two, the highways 676 and then 76 on around 30th Street. When I went to work at Made in America, I took the trolley down to 22nd Street and I walked up 22nd Street towards the Parkway. And between Market Street and the Parkway, everything west of 22nd Street was underwater. And, that's a big issue, not just for property damage, but like, somebody who's disabled who now can't get out of their home until all that water is gone. And, what if you have a medical emergency? What if this? What if that? Like, yeah, I feel like the city of Philadelphia probably could have done more to address that and get more resources out there to people.
Yeah, and if that's not a disaster, if that's not enough to declare a disaster emergency, you have to ask, then what is? Like
Right,
how
how
much
bad does
more
it have to
water
get?
do we need to prove it's a disaster? Like another highway, it is very odd that it wasn't declared, I felt too.
So and maybe I missed it. Maybe there has been a disaster declaration by someone, but I usually catch these things. Biden did a tour of the Northeast, of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, New York, and I heard nothing in that tour coverage about him declaring a federal disaster area or anything like that. Um, Again, maybe I missed it. Maybe, I miss things sometimes. So maybe I missed it. Maybe there is. But yeah, if you've been affected by this, there is information being gathered right now. Philadelphia has a form. The several Pennsylvania counties have a form. you know, where you can go on and say, hey, I was affected by this disaster. You know, here's the information about how I was affected. They all do specify that this is not an application for disaster relief, however.
I got to work, but thanks for having me. Okay.
All right, thanks, Kent.
All right,
And so they all do specify that this is not a request for disaster relief, as I was saying, and that's a little problematic. You know, we do need disaster relief. There's at least one theater company that I know of that lost over 20 years of props and costumes. Spiral Q, which you know, luckily one of their pieces has been donated to the Smithsonian, so it's actually protected at the Smithsonian. But you know, they lost all of their inventory that was in storage. You know, being flooded
Yeah,
out in a place that shouldn't flood.
that's pretty catastrophic for a theater company too. Like most theater companies, as you know, but for anybody watching, you know, run on a pretty shoestring budget with a lot of stuff, and a lot of the way that theater is made happen, especially on a smaller scale, is by reusing old stuff like props, especially, and also wardrobe. So yeah, to lose 20 years worth of collected, essentially theater wealth, like that's like wealth in the theater community in a lot of ways. That's pretty catastrophic.
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, if this kind of stuff concerns you, if you were affected by it, I do highly encourage you to contact your representatives, contact your local representatives, be they city council, be they state representatives, and contact your greater representatives in both the state and federal government, your state senators, your House of Representatives rep, your federal senator, and you know, contact the White House, contact the Office of Disaster Services. Say, hey, why why is there no disaster relief available for this huge disaster? This is you know, yeah, we're following disaster after disaster, but you guys are kind of responsible for this. What's going on? It's 11 o'clock. I want to respect everybody's time, and I want to say thank you to my guests,
Chris and Chris,
Chris and Kent.
both wearing
Um,
green shirts.
Yeah,
both wearing green
lovely
shirts.
shade of green, right?
Neither have
Um,
shaved in quite a while.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. You know, that's the most annoying thing about the pandemic for me. I know first world problems, but I literally haven't, with having a new baby, I literally haven't had time to shave.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, so yeah, I'm gonna get back to watching the baby. She's doing all kinds of new things all the time. So and I've got a film to make this weekend, and I'm sure you guys have important things to do as well. So yeah, I want to thank you for coming on, talking about the Life Raft, and talking about conspiracy theories. Be sure to purchase tickets for Chris's show, Violence of the Lambs. Let's find out why lambs are trying to murder us.
And not just lambs, all animals.
All
Probably
animals.
we'll see. We'll see.
The lambs are leading them, but yeah. Thank
It's
you all.
it's an M. Night Shyamalan plot, really.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, and I'm gonna say goodbye to the guests on screen here. It's gonna go up to me. Guys, feel free to stick around if you want to chat afterwards. I'll be here for another few minutes. And so everyone that's left, feel free to support us on Patreon. Please do hit the like button, share this broadcast. It'll be in replay about 5 minutes after I end the broadcast, so it'll be available if you share it on your timeline. Other folks will see it. Feel free to hit the like button. Feel free to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/LightThiefProductions. We're an independent news source, and to remain independent, we are only sponsored by you guys, our audience. Um, so yeah, we do that so that we don't have to answer to advertisers and don't have to cover things in a way that is counter to the truth or whatever we're able to find out of the truth. And so, yeah, please feel free to tune in again next week. Next Wednesday, we'll have some more special guests. We're hoping to get some folks on the ground from New Orleans who will be talking about Hurricane Ida and the recovery efforts going on there. I believe we also have a special guest from, let's see, we have. I believe we have a special guest from the Philadelphia theater community. I don't have that info just yet, but we will be on next week. So feel free to tune in and give it a listen. And really appreciate everybody's attendance. So thanks for coming and have a great week.